So the winter solstice happens this Wednesday. In the northern hemisphere, that's the longest night and the shortest day. But just after the solstice, just in time for Christmas, the light begins to increase again, and the light overcomes the darkness, and astronomy provides us with a beautiful, beautiful image. A primordial symbol understood by the ancients as they lit bonfires thousands and thousands of years ago. They felt it deep in their core, and we feel it deep in our core as the night sky becomes a symbol, a metaphor of the light of the world who returns to bring us clarity of light. We stumble in the dark. We're afraid of the dark. But with increasing light, we see things again more clearly. And we feel safe. We feel secure. And that is why we celebrate Christmas right after the winter solstice. Not because it's Jesus' birthday. Frankly, we don't know when that was, but because the solstice so beautifully, so poetically becomes a metaphor. Just when we have reached the darkest night, God shows up. God's love sustains us. God's grace upholds us and illumines us and guides the way. In Isaiah chapter 7, which we just heard, it presents King Ahaz, who is widely regarded as the most evil king in all of the history of Israel. And when Ahaz says in verse 12, I will not ask, I will not put Yahweh to the test. Isaiah, I think, I bet you in the original Hebrew text, he put an emoji of a great big eye roll, like, oh, brother, coming from you, of all people, you will not put the Lord to the test. So he put a big eye roll emoji in there. Is it not enough for you to weary the people around you, Isaiah says? Must you also weary God? Therefore, the Holy One is going to give you a sign, and this young woman is going to become pregnant and will give birth, and you will name that child Emanuel. God is among us. And just when the night becomes so long that darkness seems to overcome the light, God shows up with a promise that foreshadows the birth of Jesus, the light of the world, who tells us, you are the light of the world, and the Holy One will lead us home. And the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness does not overcome it. Just when Joseph was in crisis, and his fiancée is pregnant, he knows it's not by him. And he's overcome by feelings of betrayal and skepticism and confusion and hurt and maybe even some anger and sadness. When the darkest night seems to overcome, God shows up. And in his confusion, Joseph can trust. He can open his heart and welcome Emmanuel, God with us. If we are with God and receive the presence of the Holy One into his home. Emmanuel is Hebrew for God is with us. And it is this great gift of grace that we celebrate at Christmas, that nothing can separate us from God's love. And St. Paul shares this message in the book of Romans, the letter to the Romans, chapter 8, when he tells us that nothing can separate us from God's love. Not pain, not poverty, not sickness or violence. Nothing in all creation or heaven or earth can separate us from the love of God. Neither monarchs, nor rulers, nor angels, nor demons, not even death itself could separate us. No, Emmanuel, we hear today. God is with us and will be with us always. So welcome to God's heart, to God's home. And when the darkness seems to overcome the light, and you've reached your winter solstice, know this, that the light of God God's love will guide us home, the light of the world. Jesus, Emanuel, has told us, you are the light of the world, and so we welcome that light. An 85-year-old woman with a large family had developed debilitating memory loss, and reluctantly her children placed her in the care of a nursing home. But they brought her home for Christmas. And as they had done so many times, they gathered around the piano to sing carols there at home. And when they came to Silent Night, they were astonished at what happened, because they could not believe what the mother, who had barely spoken for a word in years, she started singing Silent Night along with them, and it was beautiful. And the daughter who was telling the story described it more or less in these words. She said, you know, that her mom was singing too, and her voice was soft, but her voice was on key, and she knew the words, and everybody was stunned, but they just kept right on singing, and they smiled at her, and she nodded, and it was a moment of this incredible warmth and light and joy and blessing and beauty. And of course they understood that with dementia, the earliest memories are the longest, but the light was the light was shining through the cracks. They could see, and it was beautiful. And they understood that she still had that spark, that light of God's love within her. And even when she couldn't recognize the faces of her own children, and she seemed incapable of communication or laughter or even tears, the songs of Christmas faith were still alive deep within her memory, deep within her soul, below the frost line of loss and sickness and skepticism and illness. The Christmas song went on, and she was home. And I believe that each one of us, deeply in our souls, we, well below the frost line of cynicism or doubt, we have that deep longing too to come home for Christmas, home to the manger, home to the redeeming, forgiving, unending, and sustaining love of God. And that is why Christmas is so special, because it reminds us God is with us as we choose to be with God. And step out of the shadows, and step into the light. This is good news, sisters, brothers. God is with us, and we are home when we choose to be with God. But I know the real reason that you came here today is to hear the Christmas story retold by our children in our Christmas pageant. And so